Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the Project Freelance podcast. I am your host, Kay Anagonio, and this week I'm going to be talking about how to break into the corporate job market as a freelance creator. Whether you are a photographer, a videographer, a drone pilot, doesn't matter. Hopefully this episode will help you guys break out of the small-time, low-budget gigs and into a bigger corporate world. That's where the money really is at. Welcome to Project Freelance. All right, guys, so I have been freelancing for over a decade now. I started in about 2011, really, but I was living overseas at the time. So I was studying film production in Dubai, and my first job, I was an intern videographer and editor at the Skydive Drop Zone. That's kind of where I cut my teeth and learned how cameras work and learned how to edit, what editing platforms I didn't like. For example, they were editing on Sony Vegas at the time, and I was like, nah, this is not it. This is not what I want to be working in. And at my school, so I went to SAE Institute. It's the School of Audio Engineering, but they have obviously branched out into other things. So they have sound production, they have animation, like web design and development, games design, and a bunch of other things. Now I'm sure they've expanded more. I was actually thinking about like going back and learning animation at SAE, but the campus here in Nashville, they only do audio engineering, which, you know, is great. And it's a very Nashville thing to like want to teach audio engineering here, because it is like now the music capital of America. Sorry, Austin, we've taken over. Especially for writing and production stuff, it's definitely taken over, but they don't offer anything else. They don't offer animation or film production. They only do sound or audio engineering at the campus here. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to probably do something online, because I've always wanted to learn animation and feel like I should have done that when I was studying at SAE back overseas, because I feel like everything I learned about film production, aside from like the names of the different departments and maybe how to light a green screen, everything else I kind of learned like on my own outside of school. It was a lot of like essay writing, and then like we'd do like one project per semester for each of our courses. So cool, but also like I needed hands-on experience to be able to like figure out how cameras work and how sets work and how lighting works. It was just, you know, it's a little side tangent about that, but just to give you some color and some background about where I started and what I kind of did, trying to learn everything about like the industry. In 2014, I moved back to America and started getting jobs off of Freelance, which is now called Upwork. So I'm sure a lot of you guys out there are familiar with platforms like Upwork or Fiverr or whatever you're using that is the equivalent, basically a freelancing website. I did a bunch of jobs on Upwork, small jobs, obviously, especially back in 2014. They were smaller jobs. Bigger companies and corporations were not using platforms like Upwork, probably because they didn't need to. But yeah, that's kind of how I like got my start, was through Upwork, honestly, like just getting those small time jobs. And, you know, it was a grind for a long time, for years. I just tried to grind and build this like small freelance production company that was just me. It's just me. I'm just a one man band, if you will. But in the fall of 2014, I got asked by a band to go on tour with them. And that was, I don't even know if it was fall, really. It was actually summer, because I remember I did a bunch of Warped Tour dates as a photographer. I emailed Kevin Lyman, found his email online somewhere, emailed him and asked if I could photograph Warped Tour. He then said, which one? I said, well, how many can I do? And I ended up photographing probably a dozen dates of Warped Tour that summer. And it was amazing, man. It was crazy, like getting to kind of travel. Just got back to America, just traveled around with different friends, hit different pockets. I did all Texas, I did all Florida, and then kind of joined up with this band, and they played one day of Warped Tour, and then we did like their tour as well. And that's kind of how I got into like the touring world of music photography, content creation back in 2014, and just kind of kept up with that grind. while doing freelance jobs while I was at home, I was also trying to like build a YouTube channel around what I was doing as a photographer. And I had been vlogging at this time. So I did like 1,000 days in a row on YouTube before I was like super burnt out and had to stop that. So I just kind of did like a lot of different things to try to like figure out what I really wanted to do as far as like a creator. And then fast forward to probably 2018, 2019, maybe COVID actually kind of started this. I started getting some work at like small conferences. I think the first one was Spinnaker Summit. It was like an IT, like a tech summit down in San Diego. And I was a part of a videography team. We interviewed different people. We interviewed a guy that was from Netflix about like the tech moving forward for Netflix. And it was cool. It was a cool gig. That was one of my first like corporate gigs. And I was like, damn, okay, this pays actually kind of well. I didn't really like think about like maybe I could keep doing conferences. But that really is like kind of where the money was coming in. So I started doing conferences here and there. And then I remember I went to visit my dad overseas and then came back. And this would have been probably the spring of 2019, like the year COVID was like announced, if you will. I don't even know if that's the right year anymore. Dude, that time frame is just completely fucked. When was COVID announced? That's such a crazy thing to... February... Okay, 2020. My bad. Okay, I'm a year off. So yeah, that sounds about right. So I think in like maybe November... No, it would have been after that. So maybe it was probably the end of January that I went to visit my dad overseas and then came back and had to go work at a conference in Vegas for a company that has a software that essentially you plug in like an audio interface into the soundboard in a conference room, and then you hook it up to your laptop and you go on their website. It's like a built-in like software into a website, and it records the slideshow presentation and the audio from the speaker simultaneously. So we're essentially recording keynote presentations. So I was a part of a team of 4 in Vegas for Con Expo. It's a big construction expo that happens, I assume annually. And so I went out there to record some slideshow presentations in Vegas, and we were there the day COVID was like announced, and it was like the first day of the conference. So it was like February 11th, it would have been. That's when we heard about this thing, COVID, right? And the following 2 days, if not all of the speakers pulled out, and people just like vacated Vegas. So we were there. We were still getting paid regardless because that was our contract. They didn't have a COVID clause because that wasn't a thing then. So we basically got paid to like sit around and like wait for the end of the conference. And so that was like one of my first times working with this group. And I've since done, I don't know, probably like a dozen jobs for this company. I just finished one actually in Miami. I was there for 2 days recording for a medical conference where they were talking about like new cancer treatment opportunities. And I do want to get into like the topic of like working a conference, but I'll get there in a second. I just want to give you guys again some background and color to how I broke into like the conference world. So yeah, I've been working for this company for several years now, for about 4 years, maybe a bit longer. Just, you know, whenever they have like a conference that doesn't have a tech yet, I'll get an email seeing if I'm available for a specific date and time frame. And if I don't have any like tour conflicts or anything, I usually hop on them. So like I said, I just did one in Miami this past weekend, but I've done a bunch of other conference jobs. So I remember Spinnaker Summit was one of the first ones I did. And then from there, I just kind of like picked up doing some different conferences like all over the country, which is cool. Like you kind of get to travel over the country. And now that I live in Nashville now, and now a lot of conferences are coming to Nashville. I mean, I'm doing like 2-3 conferences a month at this point. And the way that I get these jobs, first of all, like Upwork's a great platform still, but it is a bit frustrating that they take a percentage and fees and all this stuff from you. So I am getting a lot more requests directly through my website now, which is sick. People are just emailing and they're like, hey, we're coming through Nashville with our conference. We would like you to come film, whether it be footage of our booth or a keynote presentation. I've done kind of all of that stuff now at this point. I've done photo installation photography. So like some conferences, they'll have like interactive areas where they have like, an exhibit essentially, and they'll hire photographers to come and photograph people at those installations. So for example, I did one recently and they had this cool area where it was like all like giant neon signs that were like Nashville themed. And I hired 2 other photographers to come help me. So I was at this installation, and there was another installation that was like a wall of like records. It was awards for like the conference, but they were in like vinyl record shape. So people would take photos in front of that. And then there was like the big entrance, display essentially. I had another person that was photographing people in front of that display. And then we essentially deliver the photos and they send them out as like a big Google Drive folder or something to the attendees of the conference so that they can then go find their photos and post them online. I've done things where I just strictly do headshots for companies. So a lot of times massive companies that have different offices all over the country or all over the world, they don't get together often. So sometimes at conferences, they'll set up like an area where headshots are taken so that they can update their LinkedIn and their website, the company website, for like the people that work at the company, things like that. So I've kind of done like a little bit of everything from audio to photography, videography, recaps, kind of everything. Some of my favorite conferences, and this is what I want to talk about, like the actual like topics of or like themes of the conferences. Sometimes they're not very exciting to work. For example, like I'm not big in like the medical world because I don't work in that world, so it doesn't really like, I don't know, it doesn't really like interest me too much. There are interesting things sometimes, like some of the topics, but overall, like medical conferences, they definitely are not my favorite. Some of my favorites are, things that I'm more interested in. So I've done some conferences for aviation companies. So they'll bring in like a massive helicopter to put on display in their booth, and they'll want like a recap of the weekend, like of people interacting with their booth. So I did an aviation one that was pretty sick. I worked Bitcoin conference here in Nashville for 2 different exchanges, like crypto exchanges. That was sick because like I have interest in cryptocurrency and that whole world, NFTs, all that kind of stuff. I think it's very fascinating, and I think that it does have like use cases in the future. Right now, of course, there's still a lot of like scammy shit going on in the crypto world. Obviously, if you keep up with any of that stuff, the Haktua girl, who is from here in Tennessee, just scammed a bunch of fucking people and rug pulled her crypto coin that she like had a team develop essentially and just fucked everybody. So her 15 minutes of fame, she's on minute 14 right now, and minute 15 is closing in. Getting into the conference world, I noticed very quickly that there is money there because these companies obviously pay a lot to run these conferences, which means they have like a marketing budget. And so oftentimes they'll want somebody or a team to come like capture that conference. And this isn't through necessarily the conference itself. It's through the companies that either created something that's on display, like a booth at a conference, or sometimes I've actually worked for the conference on the media team itself, which is also sick. But I prefer working by myself for like individual companies. I've done a lot of medical conferences. Like I said, I did Bitcoin conference, which was awesome. I did SHOT Show in Vegas years ago, which is like a gun. It's basically like just a gun convention, and it was pretty sick. Like seeing I worked for this company that had like night vision goggles and shit. It was very like military grade stuff. So I filmed for them and took photos of their products and things like that. It was really cool. It was like just super cool to be in like a different kind of environment. And like, who would have thought there's like this many different types of conferences? But I mean, any niche that you're in, any kind of business you're in, there's definitely going to be a conference for that. Whether you're in the oil and gas industry or if you're in the photography industry, there are definitely conferences based around that. And that means that there are opportunities for us content creators, videographers, photographers to make money at these conferences. So essentially, like, the idea, and somebody actually brought this up to me at one of the conferences I was working. I can't remember which one specifically it was, but what's interesting is I just worked this conference recently, and one of my clients was like, so do you just like walk around after you're done working for like us and like hand out business cards to other companies and like tell them like, hey, if you need video photography for the next conference you guys work, here's my card, give me a call. And I was like, nah, I don't really do that because like I have enough work as it is right now that I don't really need to do the outreach side, which is a crazy thing because like, you know, 5 years ago, I would have been handing out cards left and right, like, oh my God, please hire me. But now, like I said to that guy, like, I get enough work that I don't really need to do the outreach because I would be more flooded and I'd have to start denying and saying no. If I can't do a job, I definitely have like a network here that I pass jobs on to. But the cool thing about conferences is like, you don't really need to like necessarily do that outreach if you're already in the conference space. If it's like your first conference, then yeah, maybe do some networking, but it's not really something that I've had to do, which sounds like a privilege, but it's not. It's just that I've worked my ass off to get to a point where I don't need to do that part. But I have been thinking recently, like maybe I should hire like a VA, a virtual assistant to like apply for jobs for me, but I don't really trust people to like talk to potential clients on my behalf because like the separation of like me talking directly to a company versus someone I hire talking to a company on my behalf just feels inauthentic to me. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about the whole like virtual assistant thing as far as like applying for jobs go. Now like scheduling and things, yeah, I might go that route in the next couple of years and have someone start scheduling stuff for me, especially like podcast interactions and things like that. Cause it can be a little bit more difficult to like work my schedule and try to find like proper podcast dates because I don't do this full time. I don't do podcasts full time. I don't make money doing these podcasts. I do them because I genuinely want to help people. But that being said, if you're trying to break into the conference world, definitely start in your local area, start small. A good way to do this is kind of like, so whatever convention center is near you. So for me, we have a bunch of hotels and conference centers that these conventions are at. But no matter where you live, like literally just go on Google or ChatGPT or whatever search platform you prefer using and look up like look up the 2025 convention schedule for your city. And then you'll start to see like the exhibitors that are going to be at those shows. And then you can literally reach out to all the exhibitors and ask them like, hey, do you need content for your booth or any of your people that may be speaking or anything outside of I've also done like after parties for these companies that are at these conferences, which is also cool and like a different environment. So there's a lot within like the conference space that you can do. I've worked for a specific company multiple times and they essentially like operate all of the live-in care facilities for elderly people in the United States. And they do medical conferences and things like that every year, but they also do roundtable discussion dinners. So I've flown all over the country to do photography for these dinners and record them, which seems like so strange and like just a weird thing to like photograph, like people eating at a dinner, but it's like, it's good money. They pay well and they feed you like nice high-end steakhouse type food. And you're there for like an hour or two or three, whatever, just photographing this like dinner event. And that's just another way to get involved with these companies. I recently worked at a conference where it was all home services. So like power washing, Christmas light installation, which I didn't know was a thing. Like there are companies that will install your Christmas lights on your house for you. I just had no idea. I was never like a Christmas decorator. It's not my favorite holiday. Halloween is. But finding out that there are thousands of these home businesses in America, there's also another market there outside of these conferences. So you could reach out to the companies that were at these conferences and be like, hey, if you need, video content at for your company, like, please, like, let's talk. And so I actually worked at this home services convention for a company. The owner of the company, it's a coaching company. So they teach small businesses that do home services how to grow and scale their business. And the creator, the main coach of that company, reached out to me afterwards and was like, hey, so we have a bunch of clients that are these home services companies. Can we hire you to go film content and testimonials for these companies for us, for the coaching services? So that means I'm filming for those small companies, and I'm filming for this coaching service to get testimonials. So right now we're working on a 2025 schedule for me to go fly around or drive around the country to film testimonial videos of these home service companies for this coaching company that I met at a conference. So it goes beyond just working a conference. This is a way to grow and scale your business outside of just your city, outside of just working conferences. This is a way to really break into the corporate world. And what's interesting is I don't really promote my corporate stuff too much on my website. I should kind of put some of that stuff up now that this year is wrapping and I'm moving into the next year, into the next season of 2025. It's definitely something I need to update on my website, that I do this corporate stuff so that more people can like find me through that. But I have been getting just word of mouth, just these companies telling other companies. And I just set up my my Google business account so that I can now get public facing testimonials on Google that route to my website. So now I have these different companies giving testimonials and like 5-star ratings and stuff on my Google account, so that new companies that find me can read those testimonials. And it just further affirms the work that I do and that I'm capable of. So those testimonials are really, really important, whether you do them through Upwork or your website or some other freelancing site. Getting those testimonials is really, really important. Like I said, if you guys are trying to scale your freelance business and you want to get into the corporate world, conferences and conventions are the best way to do that, I've found. And I've now worked with like bigger companies. I also work for a robotics company here in Nashville, it's in Tennessee. They're specifically in Cookeville. But I film their giant robots. I film their robots that make products for companies, and they make these machines for bigger companies. So they work with companies that make like vials for medicine or for like diabetes medication, or we did a robot system that built car headlights, like the piece that the headlight goes into, that goes onto a truck. Their machines made these parts. They're moving into like the automotive space now, but their main thing is the medical space, these robotic machinery, AI type shit. It's very cool. And it reminds me of how it's made. So I grew up watching that show on whatever, Discovery Channel or whatever it was on. And it's just a show of like how different products around the world are made. And they have somebody go in and film at these warehouses and factories where different products are made, just to like show people how things are made. So it's kind of like my version of how it's made, but it's definitely more like sterile and like structured. Essentially, it's just like every process of these robotics, of these machines, and then I just edit everything together. But I do photo, video, and drone for this robotics company. And the way I got that job is from when I lived in California several years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago. I worked for another robotics company that is like their sister company. And I would drive like 3-4 hours to go film for them for like an hour or two, and then drive 3-4 hours back to, I lived in San Diego towards the end of my time in California, and they were up in Simi Valley. So that's like a 3-4 hour trip, depending on traffic. And then I was burning 8 hours a day driving, and I was like, this is exhausting. I'm like not able to do much. And then when I moved to Nashville, I told them I was moving, and they were like, hey, we're sad to see you go, but we do have another like sister company in Tennessee. If you want to continue working for like a robotics company, we can recommend you to them. So I've shot for the new company here in Tennessee for 4 years now. I have a job for them next week. It's like a monthly basis I'm shooting for them. Sometimes it's one machine, sometimes it's 2 or 3 machines at a time. They have a corporate budget for this because it's marketing for them, and they build these multi-million-dollar machines. So their marketing budget is massive. So those jobs pay really well, and they keep me fed for sure. And my contact at this specific robotics company just moved to a new company that's closer to Nashville. So now I'll have 2 robotics companies in Tennessee that I'll be shooting for, which is fucking sick. So excited to be just scaling my business in that way. But that's essentially like how I've broken into the corporate world. It was just starting small through websites like Upwork. So like massive shout out to Upwork for, allowing me as a freelancer to learn the ropes and learn how to price myself and that kind of stuff. And also the last thing I want to leave you guys with is some advice that a friend gave to me, because I started getting more and more corporate jobs, and I was like, they ask me whenever they ask if I'm available for a job, like, what are your rates? And I was having a hard time like scaling and growing and asking for more money because like I don't know what anyone's budget is. And my friend, I was on tour with him, and he was like, well, stop telling them your rate and just ask them literally say, what do you have for this? As far as like a budget goes, like, what do you have? And they'll tell you up front, like, this is how much we have set aside for this project. And then you can be like, damn, that's way more than I was going to ask for, which is fucking dope. Or like, this is way under what I was going to ask for. And then you can negotiate up with them. Most of the times corporate companies are pretty apt to like, offer more money, because if you do good work, they're going to want to work with you. So yeah, that's just what I want to leave you guys with is the whole like know your value thing. Definitely ask people what they have set aside for these corporate gigs, because this isn't like a small band music video. This is like, robotics companies or aviation or conferences. Like they have the money. So just ask them what they have. And I wish you guys all the best in 2025. If you have topics you would like me to cover on this podcast moving forward, please let me know in the comments below. If you're listening on Spotify, there is a comment section now, so you can also do that. If you like this kind of content, do me a favor, subscribe, and share this with somebody that's a freelancer that they could get some, some education out of this that will help them grow. But I hope this helped. I feel like I went on a bunch of side tangents, but it's a podcast, and that's kind of what these are for. Thank you guys for listening. My name is Kay, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Stay strong, keep enduring. Good luck out there, guys.